Howdy doody. Welcome to episode 265 of TDI. This is Dr. O on the horn to start per usual. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, my best friend, and Lucasfilm aficionado, Ricky Flicks. He's got his R2D2 coffee mug in his hand, ready to talk about the newest Star Wars series. Ricky Flicks, how pumped are you?
Oh, Doctor, we have a lot on the line. A lot on the line. Or should I say Disney Plus? Disney has a lot on the line, I should say, with this season.
Bob Iger.
And yes, maybe our Disney Plus memberships here, subscriptions are on the line, but Bob Iger, he misses on this one. And I'll say this, me and you, the podcast host that we are, being out of this content with potential Loki, that is going to be tough. That is tough.
Yeah, Ricky, I'm thinking that every week there is a release that we should have a meter of how close our cancellation for our Disney Plus subscription will be. So like right now we'll do a measuring stick, maybe out of 10, where do we lie in terms of 10, we're definitely canceling, 1, we're keeping the subscription. So where do we lie? Well, maybe we'll do that nice reveal at the end of the episode.
Yes, at the end.
Before we dive in though, we have to introduce a very special guest. Our official Star Wars correspondent is on TDI for his second career appearance. First quasi in person, because I think we had him on the phone last time. Johnny Sims, welcome back to TDI. Are you pumped to talk about Ahsoka?
Thank you, boys. Always happy to talk to you guys about all things film and TV, but especially Star Wars, because that's obviously my biggest passion. But yeah, the last time we were down in Charlotte and Rick came out onto the balcony and was like, "John, need you to hop on the pod." And I was like, "All right, we're doing this." So looking forward to my first scheduled episode this time.
And Sims, I have to ask you, because last time we were speaking, it was on Andor. Andor was, I think it was towards the end of its one season run.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're getting the next seasons in the future. You said that you were on strike from new Star Wars projects. And you did cave. You ended up watching Andor. I remember you sending me Instagram DM and you said, Dr. O, great recommendation. It seems like you're back on the Star Wars train. Have you checked out any other recent series from Disney Plus and Lucasfilm aside from Andor?
So yeah, going back to that, Andor was incredible, and I am glad that you talked me off of that strike at the time, because of all of the Star Wars, I think you could even say all the Star Wars live action that's come out under Disney, that might be the best, film or television. I think, I have really only checked out, a couple Marvel shows, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully this is going to end like the lackluster or mediocre straight streak we've had between both of those major franchises, Disney acquiring them and then like promoting and then absolutely funneling like program after program on there. Hopefully this is going to get us on the right track. So, important review here, Ricky Flicks and Sims. I want to start off. We know Johnny Sims is a Star Wars rebel of sorts. Let's talk about another one, Ahsoka Tano. And I want to know your familiarity with this character, because I'll tell you firsthand, I haven't watched any of the animated stuff. Like, that's just not my vibe. I was tempted to watch it because I know there are the super impassioned Star Wars fans that are obsessed with the complete lore, including the comics, including the books, including the movies and shows. I just never got into it. It came out at a certain time where I thought maybe that's not very cool. But then it's all of a sudden we're getting like the Mandoverse incorporating things from Clone Wars and Rebels. So I'll start out with you, Flex. What is your familiarity with Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, because I have bad news here. I watched almost the complete first season of the Clone Wars during COVID 2020, and I absolutely hated it. I really didn't like it.
I heard the first season sucked. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and luckily, like recently, I heard it sucks, and it's exactly what I thought. So I think I'm in the majority where I could say it's childish, it's foolish, it's for 5-year-olds, and it was a complete swing and a miss. And I think I'm in the majority there.
Tell us how you
Ricky
really
Hot
feel.
Takes not out yet, because the Ricky Hot Takes might come out later. But after that, I kind of quit on it. but I've heard it gets great. And then I see on all the time on social media that Rebels is great and the ending of Rebels is crazy. And I did kind of watch some like recap videos of the end of Clone Wars and all of Rebels and multiple videos, I should say. So I'm kind of caught up and I kind of know a decent amount now. I wouldn't call myself an expert on the case. That's why we have a correspondent here. But yeah, Ahsoka Tano, obviously a core part of that. But at the same time, it's like, all right, it's okay. I think she's cool, but she did leave the Jedi Order. And it's not like she's one of the core Jedi that I am accustomed to, like Obi-Wan, should I say. So not core Jedi, but still a cool Jedi.
Yeah, I don't have her on that upper echelon, the S tier of Jedis. Maybe going down to B tier Jedi. She does look sweet. I was excited to see her in The Mandalorian. I knew when she showed up, it was a big deal. And I knew everyone was going to be talking about it. But it seems like with these new Star Wars shows, they're doing Easter eggs from Dave Filoni that just go whoop right over my head. And I have no idea what's happening. But when I saw her wielding 2 lightsabers, I'm like, this chick's a badass. And I could see her getting a show down the line. And look where we are now. But Johnny Sims, what's your experience with Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah, so I actually want to just go back to something Rick just said. So she didn't leave the order first. She was kicked out of the order because she was wrongfully accused of a crime.
Yes.
And then after that, left the order because she saw the corruption of the Jedi Council.
Badass.
Yeah. I think
Ahsoka season 1 of Clone Wars.
Yeah, true. And I do agree, like the season 1 of Clone Wars was rough, but it gets a lot better. Some of the best arcs in the entirety of the Star Wars universe are in the Clone Wars. And a lot of those do include Ahsoka. She's had a lot of highs and lows, including seeing her master, Anakin, obviously fall to the dark side and then eventually fighting him while he's prime Darth Vader. So she's been through a lot to get to this point, and you can kind of tell. I'm not sure if you saw in the first season, Rick, but she's almost like she's kind of like a teenager. You know, she's very energetic, very upbeat, and optimistic about the Jedi and everything. And now we see in Ahsoka, she's very jaded and very reserved. Keeps her emotions to herself.
Been through a lot.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah.
And that's where, like, when I was watching these first 2 episodes, I feel like I was missing something. I felt like the guy who fast forwarded to Avengers Endgame and I missed like the whole phase 3, before I watched it. I was just like, who are these characters? They seem like whenever they talk to one another, it's like there's just a lot of history between them. Something happened with Ahsoka Tano to make her this jaded character that you're talking about, Sims. I don't know about like if you guys have talked to anyone else or like your personal experience. It felt like they really leaned on the animated realm and the Dave Filoni like writing, producing, and directing a lot of these episodes. It's like, man, I think I have to start watching this show to get the full experience of Ahsoka. What do you think about that, Johnny Sims? Is that realistic?
Yeah, and I think that's a problem for this show that we can, continue to explore. But I think it's definitely a problem because this show is pretty much, from what I've gathered, is like Star Wars Rebels season 5, but it's live action. But it doesn't feel like it was advertised that way. I kind of went into it with no expectations. I just figured it was going to be about her trying to get to Thrawn. But it's like, if you don't know these characters beforehand, you don't know their history and their dynamics, it's kind of confusing. You're not really going to feel a connection to any of these characters or the stories or the people that they're mentioning.
Yeah. Like I was just going to say, Ricky Flex, I know you're about to chime in. Like hearing names, like I knew who Hera was. Being a Star Wars fan, like you hear names. Like Sabine, you hear that name. Hera, you hear that name. Even Ahsoka Tano, like you hear that name. And Grand Admiral Thrawn, you hear that name being tossed around. But I just have no idea the depth of the characters whatsoever. And when I see this rivalry between Sabine and Ahsoka Tano, I'm like, did I miss a scene? Did I miss something?
Right.
Did I fall asleep? Am I watching this? Like I'm watching this at like 2 a.m. because like I just can't sleep. I'm like, am I just blurred? Am I blacking out right now? What's happening at this time? I actually wouldn't have mind if there was like actually a flashback scene, maybe with an Ezra or with all these other rebels together, and then maybe show where Ahsoka stands amongst all these other characters. I thought that would have been beneficial, Flex.
Yeah, like this was a live action continuation of Rebels, without a doubt. And it was not advertised that way. And it's hilarious because Johnny Sims and I, like, obviously someone that hasn't watched all of Rebels, I'm really asking him, like, all right, I gotta like watch this video. He sent me a video to watch that he recommended to me, and then we're just saying like maybe we don't need to know everything about this going into it. And then literally when we go into it, we need to know. We need to know who this Ezra guy is. We need to know. Like, thank God I did do some prep, like because I would have been lost. I feel like.
Guys, send me those links. Send me those links.
Yeah.
Will do.
There is so much background dialogue here, but still, I usually hate that, but we needed it badly. So we needed that exposition dump. We got some, not a full dump, just a little bit. And honestly, you're right, Doc. We needed a flashback or something. The Sabine, like, we don't need to get deep into this, but like, for example, the Sabine and Ahsoka relationship, like, if you didn't watch any prep pods or prep videos or anything, it's just like, how would you know? There's so much baggage with this story, and we just know nothing. And even in Obi-Wan, that show, Obi-Wan Kenobi, they gave us a montage at the beginning of episodes 1 through 3, and who hasn't seen those? So at least, and like, it's
the second best scene of the show.
Yeah. So it's crazy how we get a montage for that. Honestly, looking back, it's definitely more of a nostalgia montage, not like here's some background so we don't have to do it in the show. This show could have used a nostalgic montage, even if it was an animation Rebels.
And that's the thing. Like, you had it in Obi-Wan, it's like with not just like the montage at the beginning, but you have throwback scenes with Obi-Wan and Anakin, with like obviously Anakin being Obi-Wan's Padawan, and like seeing them train together, and like gives good context of like their relationship, and gives like a good theme or something, a through line, I guess, as we go to like the latter state episodes of that season. Here, you would get a nostalgic feeling if you are like a diehard Rebels or Rebels fan, and then also you would just get an education, of this world, of this series. How many seasons were there of Rebels? Do you guys know?
4.
4. And did Disney Plus do the last season of Rebels?
Was Disney
right?
Plus even out in 2018?
No. It was 2014 through 18, right?
You know what the craziest thing is? So me personally, I didn't watch Rebels. I tried a lot, but the art style was just too childish for me. This is a show that debuted on Disney XD. It's literally like,
that's
why it's not a show for children. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know many other shows that came out on Disney XD that weren't for children.
Yeah, no, a couple people just shut off the podcast just out of anger.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about this because before we get into initial impressions, I wanted to get like your view, because Johnny Sims, you've talked about how you can't really fall in love too much with a lot of these Marvel and Lucasfilm shows that are on Disney Plus. I think a big reason why is that they look bad. They look cheap, and they don't look like quality. And something I liked about these first 2 episodes, it felt a bit cinematic to me. The score was a little different than most other recent Star Wars projects. Andor had a great score, but this one, it seemed to stick out a lot. You have the opening crawl that we were missing from like, I think it was last season of Mando. I don't know if they did it in Book of Boba Fett, but they added a little red font to it, so it looks decent. I thought it was like there were some great actual shots, like Star Wars level shots, like like it wasn't the evil empire that you're getting with the full scope, like we're talking like whatever George Lucas. But I thought the show looked like it was quality. And the only part that I thought kind of was on the wayside, or at least like I didn't really believe, if that's the right word, is like the cosplay costumes of like a Hera who looks like she was going to Comic-Con 2018, or like not Sabine looks fine because she's like human and she's a Mandalorian, but then like when Ahsoka Tano actually looks sick too. But I just want to get your guys' thoughts on like the level of quality that you're seeing thus far. What do you think, Sims?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really have any complaints so far about the visuals. I thought the lightsaber fights were very well done. I think the effects are good. Any shot of space, that's just one thing Star Wars just nails every time. Anything that shows like outside the planet, anything in space is just amazing every time. And they've kind of kept that going.
That's a good point. That's what I'm talking about. Like that's where you get that wide open feel to it. And it feels like it's on a big screen, even though you're watching on a small one. What do you think, Flex?
Yeah, I agree with most of what you guys said. And Doc, I do agree. A negative is the Comic-Con type of feel.
It's
with Hera.
It's Hera.
It is tough. But I did like Hera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, in this. Kind of like the therapist in this episode, the therapeutic one. I did like her. I will say, though, I got to disagree with you, Johnny Sims. Didn't like the lightsaber duels. I don't think
really.
I thought they were okay. I just think Ahsoka Tano has such sweet, like, obviously very cool, the two lightsabers, and she's very talented. But I think because, I don't know if it's just because they're white, but it's tough in the daylight. It doesn't have that same feel. If it was at night, like it was in Mandalorian, I think it would pop more. It did. Like, we got a lot of lightsaber duels here. We had like 3 or 4, not just with Ahsoka Tano. Yeah. But we got to go for quality over quantity. And I didn't think the quality was at the height that I wanted to see. And especially with Ahsoka Tano, who, again, I didn't say she was an A-list Jedi, but she's a B-list, I would say. I still consider her, like, she's one of the best. Like, she's definitely, like, the best living Jedi at the moment. I still expect her to take down those droid, like, Jedi, or whatever you want to call them.
The Inquisitor.
Forcers. Like, nothing like that. So, I don't know. I thought it was okay, not great.
Yeah, your rebuttal, Sims. He just came at you there.
Sorry,
I was going to say, as I was watching the daylight scene with the 2 lightsabers, like seeing the dual lightsabers even in the broad daylight, I literally texted my best friend Mark, who's also a Star Wars super fan, and I said, "Man, the white lightsabers look incredible." So we're just on 2 opposite sides of the spectrum here. I thought they looked awesome, even in the daylight.
You know what, Sims? I'm on your side for this argument, dude. I thought, like, dude, first of all, she's got 2 of them. That's what separates her. She has the unique look, and she's got like the braids or whatever, those like the tails coming out of her head. But then you have like those double lightsabers, and they're white. It just separates her. You talk about her like going away from like the Jedi way, and she's just goes to the beat of her own drum. I kind of love that. But I also think, well, you talked about like those scenes with the lightsabers, not just the look of them, but like. I saw someone talking about this. I couldn't agree more. It's like a samurai type of like moment. Like they were so good at capturing like that lightsaber, the sound, right? With the face off, the one-on-one, that even when the Inquisitor like has his, then he hits up the other side, goes all Darth Maul on you. I'm like, damn, like these fights mean something. We didn't get many lightsaber battles during The Mandalorian. It felt refreshing to have those back. And like Ahsoka Tano, she was a beast in that season 2 of The Mandalorian. That's where I was like, I want to see, like, I have no history with this character, but all I know is I want to see more of her. So when I see that she can't handle the Inquisitor, I'm like, what's going on here? We got some rust that we got to get off those lightsaber handles. I don't know. It was more about her not winning it, but I thought the production value, it was high quality.
But all right. Let me just make one last rebuttal here. If it was at night or in the dark, would it or would it not look better?
Oh, yeah. I think that's also in the Mandalorian episode. They're in like the jungle, right? Like, I don't know what planet they were on. Yeah. So it's like when it looks amazing in that type of setting, but I don't know. I think it just worked for me all the way around, you know?
Yeah. And two, I just think, like, also, are we calling them, they're not Inquisitors, right? Like, but like, what are they? What are they called?
Yeah. So Inquisitors. I'm going to call on Sims here. Like an Inquisitor is someone that hunts Jedi from Obi-Wan.
But they're not hunting Jedi. That's why they can't be Inquisitors.
I'm like, the one that Ahsoka fought at the end, he definitely had the look and feel of an Inquisitor. I'm not 100% sure yet what the deal is with Baylan and Shin.
Right.
I don't think they're Inquisitors.
Because, like, they feel like they're obviously the dark side, but, like, he's sentimental at the end of episode 2 saying it's going to be a shame to kill her. Like, that's not a true dark Jedi. Like, is he like a dark gray Jedi? Like, I don't know.
And it's interesting because I don't think he's like dark like the Sith. And as you say, he does say, you know, I have the quote here, to kill her will be a shame. There's so few Jedi left. I thought that was great. And it kind of gave me Count Dooku vibes, because Dooku was originally a Jedi, that he was drawn to the dark side, not because he wanted to be evil, but because he saw the corruption of the Jedi. So perhaps we could see some sort of backstory there with Baylan.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite characters from these first 2 episodes. Like, I'm not familiar with the Rebels, but who stuck out was Baylan Skoll. Like, he was this large, intimidating, like veteran type of Jedi. Who was a survivor of Order 66. And it was that line. I actually wrote down the same quote, Johnny Sims. And then I think who's the prisoner?
Morgan.
Morgan Elsbeth. I think she says like, oh, you show like empathy for the Jedi, and he's like, no, just like truth. Like this is I'm just telling you, I know how to feel things. I can sense things. But I can also say, after like how intimidating he was in that first scene, I could see him turning to the good side. I could see him going towards the rebel side by the end of it, just by that one comment. I think they're really foreshadowing something by the end of this season. Ricky Flex, what was your feelings on Baylan Skoll?
Yeah, I loved Baylan Skoll here. Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. Loved him, and I liked the Padawan too. Ivana Shenko's her name's Shin in this. I don't know if they said it. I had to look it up.
I think they said Baylan Skoll's apprentice.
Yeah, like they didn't actually say her name, so I had to look it up. Shin literally is her name. Shin, like your leg. Like them both. I just hope she doesn't turn out to be like Reva and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Moses Ingram's character. I really hope she's like, that dominant character, because Sabine, who we'll get into, I have my gripes with her, even though I like her and the actress. I have some gripes. She just easily takes her down. And I think Shin has aspirations that are higher than Reva. So I'm hoping that we get a bigger character arc with her than we saw with Moses Ingram's Reva and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And you mentioned some history with Baylan Skoll. Do you know anything about The Apprentice, Johnny Sims?
I know nothing about her now.
Just nothing with Shin. So I actually like the villains. I thought were pretty formidable for being like secondary villains. And the first scene with those two coming aboard the ship, it was like Phantom Menace, but in reverse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like them with the hoods on, and then they're actually the bad guys. I was like, okay, like this is like Dave Filoni cooking right here.
Mm-hmm.
He knows Star Wars fans like how their brains work. So I think he's just intentionally doing those types of scenes. And we don't get any. I think we got a mention of Thrawn, maybe I think in this first episode. So like obviously we're trying to find this map. Map's going to lead them to Grand Admiral Thrawn. So he's obviously the big bad of this season. The question becomes, when are we going to see Grand Admiral Thrawn? Is he going to be in the front half of this season, or is it the back half? How much screen time is he actually going to have? Do you think, Johnny Sims, they got to show him sooner rather than later?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if I had to guess, I don't think we'll see him until around like episode 6, maybe 7.
Okay.
And he is, it's my understanding at least, that he's kind of like the biggest Star Wars villain to not yet appear in live action. And it was a significant thing. So the way that Rebels ends, Ezra, the Jedi, and Thrawn basically get teleported somewhere outside of like the known universe.
By whales.
So by the Force whales, yes. So I do think it's going to be interesting seeing it kind of marinate as we inch closer and closer to getting back Ezra, getting back Thrawn. What have they been up to in this time, or have they teamed up in this time, or what's been going on there? So I think it'll be interesting to see how they play it. But
yeah, and that's a good thing that you brought up Ezra, because me not being a Rebels guy, it's not the first name that pops in my mind, but obviously a huge part of this story. And they are presumably in the same area. Are they going to go get Ezra first and he becomes part of the Rebels again? Or are they going to run into Grand Admiral Thrawn beforehand? What I'm nervous of is that we don't really get much Thrawn whatsoever in this season. It's almost like Mandalorian season 1, where Moff Gideon, we don't get him really until the last episode of season 1. And I don't know if they want to overuse Grand Admiral Thrawn, because like you said, this is the biggest villain that Star Wars has that has not been seen on the big screen. And what we know coming in the future, we have a Mandoverse movie that's going to feature a lot of these rebel characters. It's going to have Boba Fett, probably. It's going to have Mando and Grogu. I'm just nervous that they're just going to either overuse the character, or if they don't overuse him, he'll just have a very minuscule part of this season of Ahsoka. I kind of think it's a lose-lose situation. What do you think, Flex?
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be late. Like you said, he's like the biggest villain that hasn't showed up yet in live action form in this franchise, right? And he's going to be the big bad in the Mandoverse movie. Spoiler. So, like, I think that's already like you don't want to use too much of them and lose that effect that you have. And it does feel like the Balin character will be a formidable foe for Ahsoka, and they're gonna be building up to that Ahsoka versus Balin battle, I think, throughout this season. And Thrawn doesn't really fight, in Rebels. He doesn't really fight, so that's not his bag. So I feel like that's more of like a guy that's just like gonna be the guy throughout a whole movie, rather than, oh, let's just throw him here, throw him in this TV show, and then also throw him in this movie where he does the same thing. I agree with Johnny Sims. I personally think episode 7 or 8 they introduced him. But my problem with that is they already have the map, and they opened it and they know exactly where he is. So 2 episodes in, we got 6 to go. Like, what's preventing them from getting him next episode or the episode after? And I honestly think there's been a lot of exposition, probably not enough. We talked about maybe should have done a flashback or a montage or something. I don't know how long you could drag these episodes out, this story out without introducing Thrawn, if the whole point of the series is to find Thrawn, and they already have the map and where he is, and especially with the pacing already with this show, I think they've run into a problem.
Dude, I think what Filoni might do, because they already have the map like you're talking about. They know where Thrawn is, or they presume they know where he is. It's like a race to Thrawn. What was I going to say? I think there might be a flashback episode, like a full episode that Filoni has wanted to do in live action. I think that would give the fans, like we talked about earlier, the nostalgia that they want and the necessary information for new fans to Ahsoka and the Rebels. Like, I could see that happening almost like as a time killer, but also necessary for the story. Is that possible?
You're so right. This show is clearly for Star Wars diehards. Like, he's gonna do an episode like that. Not necessarily because of the pacing or because this is like kind of like we're already like at the map, but because like he was gonna do this no matter what for the fans, and especially because like you said, Johnny said, like, this was on Disney XD, for God's sakes. If you watch this show for 2014 2018, you are a diehard. So he's gonna reward you here. You finally got an Ahsoka show. His baby, by the way. This is his baby. So like
he'll put it animated. He'll make a throwback episode. It'll be all animated.
Yes, dude. I will say, I forgot to mention this off the top. The Tale of the Jedi, that 6-episode short limited series they did on Disney Plus, was actually very enjoyable. I don't know if you guys checked that out.
Wasn't there one with Ahsoka Tano?
Yeah. I put it on the Rex when it came out for weekend streaming Rex. And the Ahsoka Tano one was really good. And I think that's not my favorite, but probably my top. It was definitely my top 3 favorite out of that limited series. But that was a good flashback. They won't go all the way back when she was a baby. But what I'm saying is maybe they do an Ezra, Ahsoka Tano as Fulcrum, like kind of leading this rebel charge here. That would be interesting. I think Dr. O, I think that's an incredible shout.
Sims, thought on a flashback. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, definitely. And as we've said, like, it's kind of needed. When I was watching this, as someone that knows a lot about Star Wars, I was just thinking, like, my parents are going to be watching this show. They've watched like The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and some of the movies, but they're going to be lost. They're going to have no remote idea who any of these people are. Like, from now on, I'll have to watch every episode with them to kind of answer all their questions. But we do need, I do think more exposition is needed and hopefully planned.
And part of a major question I have on this show from these first couple episodes, who the hell is Ezra? And when I looked at that image, right, that it looks like that Disney XD animation they put as a mural in the live action show. I'll have to get your feelings on that. All I know is, like, I don't know. That's an Easter egg that was the most obvious thing of all time. It felt out of place. But Ezra, when I looked at that picture, I'm like, okay, what I do with these type of like blockbuster franchises, shows, movies, I try and make comparisons. So I'm like, okay, Ezra in the middle of this group. And I'm like, okay, what's his comparison in the X-Men? Is he like a Cyclops of the X-Men, or is he like a Wolverine? Like, I got the vibe that Ahsoka Tano is like the Wolverine of like the Star Wars Rebels, or even the Sabine might be the Wolverine. But I thought Ezra seems like almost like the Captain America of the Avengers, right? Or that Cyclops character. Can you describe Ezra for us?
So as I did say at the beginning, I haven't watched Rebels. So to be honest, I'm not too well versed on Ezra. I more so got caught up on the aspects of Ahsoka.
I didn't know if like he was in Clone Wars. Like
no, he was only in Rebels.
Can I take a crack at it? I'm gonna take a crack at this. So like Ahsoka is clearly like fulcrum. She's the leader. All right, but like low key, she's not as involved. Like I will say, like after watching these, so like I don't know, she's either Wolverine or Beast, like one of those two. Whoa. I think Hera is Storm. Core, very like still like got her own thing going. There's another Jedi who goes blind. I forget his name. He's also married and has a kid with Hera. No kid in this, by the way. He dies in Rebels. Spoiler alert. I would say he's more of a prominent character than Ezra throughout Rebels. Like out of all the like prequel or all the videos I watched, he was huge. And he was kind of like teaching Ezra the entire like the Jedi way, even though he didn't finish his training because of Order 66 and everything. So like I would consider him a step above Ezra. So like it kind of like falls at like the lower end. Like he's kind of a lower tier member of Rebels, I would say.
He's not a Jedi though, right?
No, he is.
He
was a Padawan. I think he is kind of representative of that next generation of Jedi because he was like Luke's age, like super young, fighting the Empire as a rebel throughout the duration of Rebels. Like I think he's only like 19 or 20 or something.
And he speaks to animals, Doctor. Like he uses the Force to speak to animals. Hence the whales that I referenced with Thrawn.
Interesting, dude. I gotta bring this up and going into some details here. Like I had never seen the Force used like it was in this episode. In a few moments, Ahsoka, when she went back to Sabine's, wherever her shanty, whatever you want to call it, she goes there and she is like, she puts her hand to her forehead and she just replays conversations she wasn't present for. Like I never seen the Force used in that manner before. Is that something that like Ahsoka's used to? I just never seen that before on the big screen. Or if Filoni's just getting creative on us.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that, but I will say in Rebels, there were like a lot of new Force concepts introduced. For example, there's this whole world between worlds that you can go in and kind of manipulate time, and Ezra actually enters there in Rebels and pulls Ahsoka out of her fight with Darth Vader because she's going to get killed. So I'm not sure if it's something that she learned while she was she did some training in that kind of world between worlds. But again, this is something that you would have never known any of this if you hadn't watched Rebels or seen some sort of video to get kind of caught up on everything.
Those animated shows, you can F with the rules. They didn't know they were going to be canon. You know, Ryan Johnson does it for one movie, and then like people want him like tarred and feathered in the middle of the galaxy. You know, So I think we should also, we talked about Ezra. Let's talk about some of these supporting characters. Let's talk about Sabine and Hera. Ricky Flicks, like who stuck out from this watch in these first two episodes?
I liked Sabine. Sabine was good. I like Natasha Liu Bordizzo. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. That rebel punk rock against authority figure here. We clearly have depth to her character with the Jedi Apprentice failure. Also a Mandalorian. Also loses Ezra, which is apparently a huge impact on her. So I do think it was a good acting performance. I think it's a good character, like I said, with depth and with potential. So I like that character. Definitely one of the better, if not the best performance overall in these first two episodes. I will say, though, two things. One, totally on Ahsoka's side, even though it was kind of momish. Like, what is she doing leaving? Like, so dumb.
Taking the map? That was idiotic.
That was just like, what the hell?
But she found him.
Too, like Johnny Sims, you could help me with this. There's nothing I hate more in Star Wars with people that don't have the Force that try to be Jedis. So I already know I'm gonna hate her, and I know it's in everything. She's in Rebels. She's gonna be an apprentice once again, a Padawan to Ahsoka. But if you don't have the Force, you shouldn't be a Jedi. That's always my Star Wars take. You might hate it. That's my thoughts.
It does. It is one. You could say it's an important part of being a Jedi to be able to use the Force. It's not just swinging around a lightsaber. There's a lot more that goes into it for sure.
I hate it. I hate that. I already know it's going to be a thing with me.
in Rebels, they hinted at her possibly being like having some level of force sensitivity. She just can't use it. Like she hasn't tried to tap into it yet. So we'll see if they kind of explore that a bit.
Let's speed it up.
And
yeah, right.
She seems like a naturally conflicted person, and like seems a Mandalorian that wants to be a Jedi, but also has this conflicted relationship with like her well, not her apprentice, but whatever, her teacher, right? With
Mentor.
Ahsoka Tano. What'd you say, Ricky? What's the term?
No. Like what you said, mentor.
Yeah, so see, I'm just interested because like this is what I liked about the Mandalorian. They never made like Din Djarin. They were not like, oh, is he force sensitive? They don't force like him having the force like on fans. Like he is a Mandalorian. He takes pride in being a Mandalorian. I like that. But now we're getting someone that's like being torn between two worlds. Going to be someone, I guess, that we keep our tabs on. Any other thoughts on Sabine, Johnny Sims, and her portrayal in the first 2 episodes?
I thought she was good, but to be honest, while I was watching these episodes, I felt like a lot of the acting fell flat. I don't know if it was the writing or just the pacing of the conversations, but I didn't really feel a lot of like emotion or any empowerment coming from these characters. Maybe it could be the fact that we don't really have an emotional connection to them if you haven't seen Rebels, but I think there's some things that we can build on.
Dude, I agree with the performance take. It seemed like, especially Ahsoka, like very one note. Just like it seemed like a very simple task for the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And that's also, I think, because like she doesn't get the screen time for like the namesake in a show that you would expect that was being divvied up like this. And then Sabine is just angry all the time. Just like absolutely emo. And Ricky Flips looks like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I completely agree with the Sabine take. And yeah, like I think like low key my main takeaway is this called Rebels or called Ahsoka? Because like Ahsoka's barely in this. And again, we mentioned earlier Ahsoka's backstory, how it's like incredibly like sad and like, Anakin's Padawan, look what happened there. Clone Wars, clearly framed for the bombing, like Johnny Sims mentioned on the Jedi Order. Welcome back, but then she leaves, fights with the rebels. Ezra's gone, right? Kind of like one of the last Jedi with her. So like she's gone. The Sabine Padawan failure. She has a lot to her that's just like sad and depressing her entire life. She's kind of been alone her entire life, besides Rebels too. So there's a lot going on. Her character feels subdued, a little stiff, lacking personality in these first 2 episodes. And I think without that backstory that we just mentioned in live action, it could just be completely misunderstood. And if you didn't watch Rebels or Clone Wars. So I just think like it is tough. I totally agree with you guys on the Ahsoka part. And I just think, yeah, like I agree with the character, like how she's just not, she's stiff, like I mentioned, or subdued. But at the same time, it's like, well, you didn't really give us any backstory, any development to it. So it's just like, oh, it's just kind of odd.
Yeah, they're a couple lone wolves, so it's like maybe we're going to get to know them and see them interact more and more, and that's going to pull out some emotion that we haven't got the first 2 episodes. Hera, I thought was okay. I thought it was cool that Mary Elizabeth Winstead, in real life, she's married to Obi-Wan, dude. She's married to Ewan McGregor, so I thought that was a nice touch. It almost didn't feel like an accident that she somehow finds herself in a Star Wars show. I had a couple nitpicks as we like go towards the end of our conversation here. I know this is Star Wars, but then for Sabine to go to her shack and then all of a sudden say, I can get the map from there. I have no idea the technology she's using, and then boom, it's right there. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? What do you have? Can you explain anything to us? Or it seems like that Star Wars, like we believe in fairy tale type of thing. Like, yep, it's definitely going to be there. And then with Sabine, at the end of the first episode, I thought that lightsaber went right through her chest.
Yeah,
I was like
she should have died.
I'm like, what is happening?
It's like the same kind of stab that killed Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah,
but now it's like, oh yeah, just patch me up, Doc, and I'm good.
Yeah, dude, like literally through the back. It was like a hole in her, and then she's like getting up the next day saying, "Yeah, I'll fight with you, Ahsoka." I'm like, get real. Yeah. What's happening right now? But that's Star Wars for you. I haven't seen anything that egregious in a while. But other nitpicks, I was going to say Netflix. Maybe that's what we should call that segment.
But yeah, like I think it's being like she's a Mandalorian / Force kind of sensitive Jedi / engineer. So like you just got to take it and run. Like just let it happen, I guess. Maps. We have more maps in Star Wars. We got Force Awakens, obviously. We have Rise of Skywalker. We like you could say Rogue One was kind of like a map. It was plans. Like I don't know, man. Like can we not think of anything better? Can we not?
Star Wars trope. Like there's definitely a Star Wars trope by now. Let's put the map up so everyone can see the map. Okay, this is like good for exposition. We can explain what we're doing. I don't mind it as much as long as it's like a minute and we're done. If you spend more than a minute on it, it's gonna make me upset.
But yeah, like, God, there's other ones, but I'll let you guys talk. I think clearly I'm a little skeptical on this show. I liked it. I do think it was a decent start. It was better than Secret Invasion start, even though I think Secret Invasion wasn't a terrible start either. But this was a lot better than that. I just think a big problem with this is that we have high expectations because now Dave Filoni, right? Now with The Mandalorian, you could say it's more him than Jon Favreau. Some people would say, right? And then now coming off of Andor, kind of a comeback for Lucasfilm after Book of Boba Fett. I think this is big for them, and this is Filoni's baby, like I mentioned. I just think, all in all, like the hype is so high, it's gonna be hard to match it. And again, like I'm gonna give this the benefit of the doubt because Andor, I remember doing the pod with you, Doctor, after the first 3 episodes. To me, that was a slow start. But the only difference with that is we accept that more because that's a political thriller that focused up building up a lot of new characters, a lot of new themes and corners of the galaxy, right? Ahsoka's piggybacking off of Rebels a lot, and for a show with a lot of lightsabers, potential war at stake here, and a lot of exposition, it's slower than expected. So I just think it's a little shocking and a little like opposite ends there compared to like Andor, and then the high expectations that we have with it.
You sound depressed, Ricky Flex. Like, is that what soured you the most? Is the leniency on prior knowledge with Rebels? Is that why you didn't like these first 2 episodes?
I liked them.
You don't sound like you did.
I liked them. I did like them. I just didn't love them. I don't know. I just didn't love them. I expected more.
Okay. Sims, any flaws as we wrap up the conversation?
Yeah, I'm still, I go back and forth where I land on these episodes, but the map thing, man, it is so overdone. Like, it's literally like the exact same thing as Rise of Skywalker. Oh, there's an ancient Sith dagger that has the Death Star wreckage on it somehow, and this guy has it. How is there an ancient map hidden in like an underground temple to Thrawn? Like, so he went missing like 10 years ago, I think, in this timeline. How is it possible that map exists? So there's definitely flaws, and I do think this is a show that Disney and Lucasfilm really needed to stick the landing on. And we'll see if they can. I'm not sure that I'm more optimistic than I was before going into these first 2 episodes, but obviously going to keep watching and just see how it goes.
So, like gathering from you, from both of you there, it seems like there's just there's an immense pressure on this show to perform, especially with like this Mandoverse movie on the way. And I kind of want to fast forward a couple of years. And I want to ask you guys, maybe we get like another season of Mandalorian. Maybe we don't. Maybe we go right into production of the Mandoverse movie with Grand Admiral Thrawn as the leader. Do you think there's enough juice there? Do you think there is enough like power and then like fan appeal to justify the next Star Wars film, the first since Rise of Skywalker? Do you think we have enough with the Mandoverse?
I think for me, it's a big problem with that because this is introducing the big bad of that movie, right? And if we all suggest the earliest, I think someone said was episode 6 with Thrawn, and I'm guessing that's probably the end scene, right? When he's introduced, do we have enough exposition for him going into the Mandoverse movie where there's again a potential war that they keep hinting at this entire 2 episodes? So for me, it's like, I don't know if there's going to be enough juice with the big bad because we're just not going to get the screen time. But at the same time, we don't want too much screen time and then ruin the movie. So they got to somehow find this balance right? And meanwhile, the pressure's on to make this good so people still watch it.
Right. What do you think, Sims? Are you going to be there for box office Thursday opening weekend to see the Mandoverse movie?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely will be, regardless of how this plays out. I'm a fan of The Mandalorian. I know it's not for everybody, and it kind of was a bit of a cookie cutter show a lot of the time, like a kind of like a never-ending video game quest. But I do still love it. Love Grogu and love Din Djarin, and yep, and I'm excited to see. I'm hopeful that Ahsoka can finish well. And do we know if we're getting a season 2, or is that still up in the air?
For what?
I wasn't sure if we were getting like a second season of Ahsoka and then Mandalorian S4, and then we're getting just this, and then.
So it's up in the air right now in terms of like when on a timeline this movie's happening. Like they announced there's going to be a Rey movie that's coming in the
Right.
I don't know what the future is, whether it's near or distant. There's going to be a James Mangold Origins of the Jedi film,
Right.
and eventually going to be a Mandoverse. But I don't know anything
and
else
Lando,
about the shows.
Lando.
Apparently Lando, but I don't know when that's coming either. I honestly don't know if we're going to get the Mandalorian again before the Mandoverse movie. I don't know if they can suckle on the tea anymore. I think they kind of like they wet it dry. I don't know. But Ahsoka, if this is fire, like I wouldn't mind a season 2, but you just gotta. I don't think you can do it because Grand Admiral Thrawn's being teased so much already in this first season. And I know you guys know a little bit more about the animated realm than I do. Is there any other villains that you can think of that might be appearing not only in Ahsoka, but in future Mandoverse projects? I know we had Cad Bane in the Book of Boba Fett. Is there anyone at that level that potentially can be seen in one of these projects?
I don't know. I think it's a good question.
I'm not 100% sure. I was going to say Cad Bane making his debut was awesome, but off the top of my head, none that I can think of.
I think another question is, does the Mandalorian appear?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think this is going to be like Filoni keeping it core Rebels.
That's like a part of the Mandalorian. Like the Mandalorian, they will have a special cameo. It's coming. It's in store at some point in a season. I think this one, it's all about like getting the gang back together. And I think that's like, it's almost like a Blues Brothers vibe. At the end, we're going to have a huge party and take on Thrawn. I don't think Filoni wants to, he doesn't want to have that reputation leaning on like outside, like Star Wars characters, projects that have happened in previously. But the interesting part is this is taking place like between episode 6 and 7, right? So you have to make us feel like it's in that world. So like, how are you going to do so without having that over leniency that Mando is sometimes criticized for? We shall see.
Good show.
Any other thoughts? Johnny Sims, Ricky Flex, before we wrap up.
I was going to say, this was something that was also in the back of my head as I watched these. I really hope that this entire Mandoverse, like my biggest fear is that the entire Mandoverse, the purpose that it serves within the Star Wars universe is to explain how Palpatine returns in The Rise of Skywalker. Yes. It feels that way. Yes. Like the whole focus on, Moff Gideon's like, we got to get Grogu. We got to get him, his force. We got to I really hope that it doesn't come to that, but I have a slight
everything goes back to Palpatine. We all know this.
Dude, I was thinking that, Johnny Sims, and also it explains who's Snoke.
That too.
The intro to Snoke. I think there was like a text or something that came out that explained it, but I got to see it in live action, or else it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like I really hope like Thrawn, like when he returns, his big plot isn't like he found out how to make a clone and bring back the Emperor. I really hope that's not the direction that they go.
Everything
it might be.
Back to
it
Palpatine.
Might be.
I'm telling you, I'm glad you said this because I was thinking this too. They have to explain it.
That was the whole purpose of all of these projects, because we have to explain how fucking stupid a decision it was to bring back Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. That's why we have Baby Yoda. That's why we have Din Djarin. That's why we brought back the Rebels, to make sure we can explain why Palpatine is in the goddamn Rise of Skywalker. I actually think that's right, as sad as it is.
Exactly. Like, it might be true. It might be true.
Sense.
Or you can see Kathleen Kennedy like whispering to Filoni and Favreau, like, "Hey, you can have whatever control you want, use whatever characters, but when it's all said and done, you gotta explain Palpatine."
Yeah.
Somehow,
Like,
some
we
way.
made this mistake. You guys got to launch 6 seasons of television and a movie to explain how this happened.
Cost us about $10 billion to get there, but you know they can just Bob Iger can pull out the checkbook. That was a very insightful comment, Johnny Sims. You got anything else on that level?
No, I think that's my biggest macro take and fear of where the show could be headed.
Flicks, anything else as we wrap?
I think, all right, I did like this. I did like it. All right. But I need to know how many people are watching the show. They haven't released numbers yet. Secret is it going to be one of the Secret Invasion because it's Star Wars, right? Most, I won't say loyal, but biggest fan base or craziest fan base, I'll say is Star Wars. It's going to be some numbers here. So I want to see some numbers, see if it's the highest amount. Did it beat The Mandalorian Season 3? Probably not, my guess, but maybe. But then I want to see next week's numbers and compare how many people dropped off. That because it's people like, I'm not going to call out Johnny Sims, Mrs. and Mr., but people that aren't the biggest Star Wars fans that didn't watch Rebels, how many people are going to drop off in Episode 3? That's my biggest interest going into Episode 3.
I don't know, Rick. It seems like I don't think there's going to be a big drop off. I think a lot of people like the first 2 episodes, and like the critics seem to be enjoying it too. And I think Mandalorian Season 3 did not have that like continuous momentum that throughout its season. It seemed like it dwindled and everyone was just pissed off by the end. I think there's like some type of hope. You know, Star Wars fans, like as much as like there is the theme of hope in like all of their films, the fans don't enact that at all. Like they never are hopeful. You know, we just always are so negative.
Pessimistic.
I thought going into Ahsoka, I think people were just like actually genuinely excited for it. So I think I have high hopes for this. I think it's going to do well.
All right. So what? All right. Here we go. Out of 10, Disney Plus on the line. What do we out of 10?
Okay. So is 10? We're canceling the subscription, right? Or you want to do one?
The other way.
You want to do 1, cancel the subscription. Johnny Sims, you're going to be a part of this. You have to help us decide. So 1, we cancel. 10, we are never canceling. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, let's go around the table here. Ricky Flex, where do we lie?
I think we're at a 7, 6.5, 7.
Okay.
I told you I like this. I'm skeptical. Like I said, I'm a Star Wars fan.
I like a 7. I like a 7.
John,
Sims, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm on like the 5-6 border. Just because I've been so disappointed in so many Star Wars products, and like most of the Marvel shows just do not hit. Like it's bad.
Think about it this way: Loki comes out in October.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to cancel before that. Obviously, I'd love to see Loki season 2 because Loki season 1 was one of the few good Marvel products.
That's
but
the
you
gamble.
can only get by
That's
on
the
so
gamble.
few.
This is where you make the big bucks, Johnny Sims.
Yeah, that's the gamble. I'm gonna have to like we just have to act like Loki doesn't happen if we have to cancel our subscription. That would suck. Okay, so that's where we lie. So let's take the average and what we want to go like a 6 then. We want to go 6.5.
6.5.
Let's go 6.5. Let's like Johnny Sims. Nice job playing the role of a Star Wars fan with your score. It sounds about right. I want to thank Johnny Sims for joining us, our official Star Wars correspondent. Can we give snaps for our guy, Johnny Sims? Thank you, John.
Thank you guys for having me. This was a blast.